Literasi keuangan merupakan fondasi bagi kesejahteraan finansial individu dan masyarakat. Nah, sayangnya survei menunjukkan bahwa tingkat literasi keuangan di Indonesia masih rendah, terutama di kalangan generasi muda. Industri asuransi sebagai salah satu pilar utama sektor keuangan memiliki peran strategis dalam mengatasi tantangan ini. Nah, seperti apa peran industri asuransi dalam mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif dan berkelanjutan, dan juga dengan memberdayakan masyarakat melalui literasi keuangan? Insight akan membahasnya bersama saya, Desi Anwar.
Berdasarkan Survei Nasional Literasi dan Inklusi Keuangan 2024, disebutkan kelompok 26 hingga 35 tahun memiliki indeks literasi keuangan komposit tertinggi, yaitu sebesar 74,82%. Disusul kelompok 36 hingga 50 tahun sebesar 71,72% dan kelompok 18 hingga 25 tahun sebesar 70,19%. Sebaliknya untuk kelompok umur 15 hingga 17 dan juga 51 hingga 79 tahun memiliki komposit terendah, yaitu sebesar 51,7% dan 52,51%. Oleh karena itu, Prudential Indonesia berkomitmen secara aktif mendorong literasi finansial sejak dini, dan pada usia ke-29 tahun ini, Prudential Indonesia semakin mengukuhkan komitmennya untuk meningkatkan literasi finansial dan asuransi di Indonesia, termasuk bagi kaum perempuan sebagai roda penggerak ekonomi Indonesia. Selain aktif mengedukasi perempuan, Prudential Indonesia juga menyelenggarakan berbagai kegiatan edukasi finansial lainnya melalui sejumlah program di berbagai wilayah Indonesia, termasuk daerah tertinggal, terdepan, dan terluar. Lewat sejumlah program ini, Prudential Indonesia diharapkan dapat mendukung target pemerintah untuk meningkatkan angka literasi dan inklusi keuangan di Indonesia, guna mempersiapkan generasi mendatang yang lebih tangguh terhadap tantangan dan perubahan ekonomi untuk menuju Indonesia Emas 2045.
Peningkatan literasi keuangan merupakan investasi jangka panjang yang tidak hanya menguntungkan individu namun juga berkontribusi pada pembangunan ekonomi yang berkelanjutan. Industri asuransi sebagai salah satu pilar utama sektor keuangan memiliki peran krusial dalam menanamkan pemahaman yang mendalam tentang pengelolaan uang, perencanaan masa depan, dan pentingnya perlindungan finansial sejak dini. Lalu seperti apa strategi dan komitmen industri asuransi, khususnya Prudential Indonesia, dalam membangun masyarakat Indonesia yang tangguh secara finansial? Saya sudah bersama di studio Tony Benitez, CEO dari Prudential Indonesia, untuk membahasnya. Tony, how are you?
I am well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure.
My great pleasure. I don't know how much you understood of that Indonesian introduction.
I understood very little, but I love the way you said it, with a lot of passion.
But you are no stranger to this
No.
part of the region, and Prudential itself in Indonesia, now it's almost 30 years.
Yes.
And you were telling me before the start of the discussion that you've actually known Prudential, although you've been CEO now for what, how many months now?
Only months, 7, 8 months.
7, 8 months, but you've
Yes.
known Prudential since you were 7 years old. Perhaps just quickly tell us a little bit. And how does that affect your sort of being the CEO of Prudential Indonesia?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I'm almost 60, so that's sort of 53 years.
60 is the new 30.
It is, thank you so much, yes. So 7 years of age when this occurred. Now, just a little bit of the backstory. My parents are Spanish. They came over to find work. So my mother was a sort of a cleaner, and my father was a waiter when he first started. And we were living in this house. So
in Spain?
Actually in the UK.
Oh,
so
in
this
the
time
UK.
we were now in the UK, and it was a very modest place. But every 2 weeks, hear a knock on the door, and this very smart gentleman would be there. I'd always try to open the door because it was always a very exciting moment for me. And this gentleman would just walk right across into the kitchen, sit down with my father, and they would talk politics. They would talk. This gentleman would help my father actually fill out forms because my father's English was very poor at that stage, and generally help him and support him. But at the end of that particular 1 hour session, normally he'd be there, have a cup of tea or two, he'd take out some money. My father would take out some money, and this man he'd have this little red book and he'd sign it and then take the money and off he goes. And that used to worry me because I used to think, we don't have a lot of money, Daddy. So I used to say, we don't have much money, why are you giving money away?
You didn't know what was going on.
I had no idea what was going on. And this went on for a number of years. After a couple of years, the man didn't really return. And then I remember I asked my father, who was he? And he said, that man was the man from the Pru.
Oh, from the Pru.
So he was a prudential agent.
And your dad was actually paying the premium.
Paying a little premium. But for me, what my father always said, this person became a friend of his because it wasn't about insurance. It was about helping him out with his translations, helping him out with other areas, talking politics, which my father did. And my father never increased his premium, but this man was always in touch with him, and that was so emotional for me.
That's such a lovely story.
And then roll forward after that, my father, as I said, was a waiter, but then after 5 years, he was able to do his trade, and he was a plumber. And but unfortunately, he caught a disease called mesothelioma, which is asbestosis, and it was incurable. But I remember him in his bed, him taking this little red book out, and he said, "Your mum will be okay."
Your mum will be okay.
Your mum will be okay, because he had left something for her.
Because he paid the premium.
He paid the premiums for all that time, and now my mother would have a lump sum.
So it was a life insurance.
It was a life policy.
But did you understand what insurance was at that early age?
No.
And at what year did you understand the significance of having an insurance?
I understood at the age of 7 that this was my father's friend. I didn't understand insurance. I really only understood insurance as I progressed, and I started to understand what prudential insurance was about. It was about 17, 18 years of age where I understood that.
And then when your father passed, bless his soul, you were okay. Your mum was okay.
No, my mum was fine because this was this opportunity. And I think for me, we talk about legacies, and that was a legacy that was left behind, because the legacies are all about how we feel. That's what it is.
But then how did it affect you emotionally and also career-wise when it came to all things insurance, where you sort of became a great believer in...
I mean, I think I still get emotional over it. So, and that will never go. But it gave me a belief that there is an opportunity through insurance where hope can be created, where possibilities can be created. And I came from a family of 4, and we had enough to eat, let's say. But now there is possibility through life insurance that you can create hope. And I tell you what it teaches me, Desi, because when I'm out there talking to all the agents, I actually say, and I say this like a broken record, I say, if you think you're selling policies, you're in the wrong business, because insurance is about selling an opportunity and a belief, and giving people that opportunity to feel that there is a certain level of security.
Okay.
And that's very, very, very important. And as I said, now going back when I was 18, 19, and 20, the career for me was really straightforward. It was going to be insurance. So
because of that experience of your father having a friend who was basically helping him out.
That supported him. And then the ability of, 15 years later, there being a lump sum, it was real. And then that opportunity of seeing my mother, as sad as it was, of course, but having that opportunity to maintain a certain standard of living, right?
And
that was very
now that
important.
you're Prudential CEO for like 8 months, how do you feel? And also
I
in
mean,
relation to that story, have you?
I mean, I'm, I think, the luckiest person in the world. And I say that all the time to my teams. You know, I'm working in a place that I thoroughly enjoy. I had two, I'll tell you this, Desi. I had 2 goals in my life before I retired, and I'm sort of hitting towards there, but hopefully.
Well, nobody retires these
No one
days,
retires
yeah.
this way, yeah, exactly. And I said, and I always said, there were 2 things I wanted to do. One was to work in Prudential as I closed my career, and 2 was to work in Indonesia.
Oh, well, you've got your dreams come true. Okay, let's take a little break.
And 3, come to CNN and meet you.
3, absolutely, Ian. Thank you so much. Well, let's have a cup of tea first while we
Okay.
take a break, but we will continue this
Yeah.
very interesting and I must say
Absolutely.
very touching
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
of you and
Yeah.
Prudential.
Thank you.
Tetaplah bersama Insight with Desi Anwar, kami akan segera kembali. Anda masih bersama Insight with Desi Anwar di studio. Saya ditemani Tony Benitez, CEO Prudential Indonesia. Kita membahas mengenai pentingnya literasi keuangan yang perlu ditanamkan sejak dini. And that was such a great story,
Oh, thank you.
Tony, of you understanding about the meaning, significance of insurance from a very young age, and it's become sort of your dream come true. Now you're the CEO of Prudential. You are in Indonesia now. But you've also been in Asia,
Yes.
so you know the region quite
Yes.
well. So just talk me through, some of the things. Prudential itself, having been in Indonesia for almost 30 years, and how does it,
Yeah.
what are the highlights of, having the Prudential in Indonesia, say compared to the rest of the region?
Yeah, I think if we take a step back there and just look at the different countries. I mean, I've worked in sort of Singapore and South Korea and in China and Malaysia and Indonesia. One of the things is people are people are people.
Yeah, the same basically everywhere.
We're
We
effectively
all
various.
bleed the same color.
Yeah, and we all want the same needs. You know, as individuals, we want to be loved. We want to be understood. We want to be engaged and involved in certain aspects, and we all have prospects, and there are opportunities, right? So that's the same within every country.
Yeah.
Now there are differences, and I'll look at this, and especially if I look at it from advancements and growth of insurance in different territories. Now to do that, we have to take a macro look. So when you look at how insurance grows and becomes and normally will become a fundamental part of GDP growth, because one of the things that one needs to understand is insurance will distribute wealth through the protection, through savings plans, right? It really will do, and it gives a broader and a much deeper population the opportunity to change their lives. It really does. But to get there, there needs to be stability. And what do I mean? So there needs to be political stability. Once you have political stability, you move towards economic stability.
Yeah.
Now, the political stability is about maintaining the previous leaders' politics to a certain degree, right? Keep what works, bring in new things. And that creates the economic stability. Now, once you have economic stability, you start to bring in social stability. Now, that social stability is where individuals and people have the opportunity really to grow. And once those 3 elements are in place, insurance is really a place where it can start and grow.
Well, the first 2, we've got more or less political stability, right?
And economic stability.
And economic stability. But there's social stability aspect. So, talk me
Yeah,
through this.
yeah.
And how do we compare, for example, in our understanding of the need of having insurance, or what insurance is all about? Now, how do you, sort of when you talk about insurance, I mean, how do you phrase it? How do you make people understand what it is that they're paying for?
Yeah. If I look at insurance, and this is where there are differences. So if I look at socially, and you look at countries, for example, like Japan, like Singapore, like South Korea, where effectively they've already achieved their demographic bonus,
Yeah.
right? They're at that year, and where
They're mature.
they're
in
mature and
literally and
exactly,
metaphorically.
and here it's will occur in 2045. I can't remember. It's Indonesia.
They have what we call it
Emas.
the demographic bonus, where
So
we have more
exactly.
productive
Yeah.
working age than
Yeah, and that productivity will occur. That bonus is around 2045,
yes.
where effectively you're going to see 70% of the population within that sort of workable working age,
we
right?
call it the golden Indonesia.
The golden Indonesia Emas, is it? Or
Yes, Emas.
Emas. There, I got one word. I got one
Good
word.
for you.
Yeah. Now, that's important to understand within the concept of insurance in itself, because the language of insurance in South Korea, the language of what insurance is in Singapore, the language as it is in Japan, in these areas, is gone beyond the basics. So there is wealth distribution, far more, that goes down via to generations. So the speak of insurance is actually much more of a standard practice. I'm taking insurance because I understand that I need the protection because I am having a family. I know that I'm this particular age and I'm going to retire, so I need to think. So that component of forward thinking and forward planning is more established in
like Korea,
South
Japan,
Korea,
or even
and Japan,
Singapore,
and very much Singapore. But when we look at Indonesia, and Indonesia being an archipelago, right? So what do you have? You have this outreach of people in remote areas, and you have sort of huge concentration, obviously, in the major cities like Jakarta. So the way that you drive and you promote and you educate in insurance is actually quite different in different areas, even within Jakarta. So what it means is that before we even start to educate, we need to understand our markets. We need to understand our segments as much as we can.
And this is something that you're learning all the time, you're understanding all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have a team of people where and in particular this year, we did a very rigorous segmentation approach to really understand the needs of our customers. But remember, understanding the needs is not just understanding the product, it's understanding the way that we must communicate, right?
So how have you, tell me a little bit about the strategy that is being used by Prudential.
Well, firstly, what's important to know is our purpose. And our purpose is for every life, for every future, for this generation and generations to come. That's our purpose. And that strategy means that it is our goal, and I believe our duty, to stretch to every part and every corner of Indonesia and be able to at least provide insurance to the outreach. Why? Because it's my story. Because that happened to me. And that's an important
is this something that is part of the company culture now, and how, because obviously you need to educate within the company itself.
I mean, the education programs is quite varied. So from an internal perspective, there's a lot of education programs, not just about insurance, but around purpose. There's a certain way to lead, so we do a lot around management and leadership.
What's your leadership style, if I may ask? Do
you know, Desi, that's going to be a session on its own.
Yes,
yeah, happy to
give
do that.
me
But
a
there are
glimpse,
three things.
and I'll read your autobiography, I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't have one. It'd be very boring. I have three things there's a number of things, but three things that are very important for me. And I think it's changed because when you get to my particular age, things change. One is be positive. Take an outlook that a challenge is a challenge is an opportunity to change. So that positivity and need to be optimistic is very important. I think the other thing for me that's very important is kindness. And for me, what I teach, and when I teach leadership, I always mention, let's be kind to each other. Now, kindness doesn't mean you can't say something difficult, but if you need to say something difficult,
well, there's a way of saying it so it doesn't insult people or hurt their feelings. Well, we can do with more kindness in this world these
I think
days.
so. And I think the aspect for me, another one which is important, is to listen. The ability to really listen and really engage is incredibly important.
Okay. Before we close this segment,
Yeah.
do you feel that your team, Prudential, they have a sense of that purpose that we were
Yeah.
talking about? Do they share that purpose, and do they understand what
I did.
it is that you're trying to
Yeah,
do?
it's a good question, Desi. All your questions are good, by the way, not just one. Right? So, but when I first joined, what I did, and I took the role. I took the role because I felt culturally this was good, and I could do something with the people.
Okay.
That was one. The second thing I did is one of the first things I did was up close and personal with me. And there we spoke about me, my life, my expectations, and how I feel we need to work and engage. And I think you could see it through, which was very heartening, through our Voice engagement surveys that were remarkably good scores. And I see it when I walk into the office with people and the level of engagement that one has. So yes, and that's
So they can
probably,
feel the aura
Yeah.
of your positivity and your
I think they
kindness. Okay.
certainly feel my positivity.
They can certainly feel your big smile. Okay, let's take another break, and you do have a wonderful smile and a good energy. So
Oh, thank you.
Jangan kemana-mana dulu, tetaplah bersama Insight with Desi Anwar. Kembali bersama Insight with Desi Anwar, saya juga masih ditemani Tony Benitez, CEO Prudential Indonesia. Tony,
Yes.
being in Indonesia, you love
Yeah.
it, right? Because
Absolutely.
you were here back in '97, just before the reform.
Yes.
In '98. And just talk me through some of the challenges in implementing some of this, what we call it, financial literacy. I mean, you know, Indonesia, 282 million people. Now, that's a big, a huge population. Of course, huge potentials and opportunity, particularly for an insurance company. And the
Yes.
other thing is, of course, it's, with a diversity and difference in whether it's in socioeconomic backgrounds and education and so on and so forth. Challenges and how you mitigate them, and how do you, sort of like you said, segment your
which is very, very important. As I mentioned, I think
customers.
yeah, the challenges are opportunities, and I certainly believe there's huge opportunities in this particular market. If I just look, as you rightly said, 278 million population, you've got an aspiring sort of middle class of 115 million, a middle class of 13 or 50 million or so. Within that dynamic, you have a retiring population that will go from, say, 19, 20 million in 20, 25 years to retirement age. You have 70% of the population under 40, and that's where the demographic bonus will really kick in. So the dynamism of the population is actually there. The key is in the segmentation.
And you have to give purpose to every segment, obviously, and a
Absolutely.
different kind of language that you use in order to capture those segments.
Exactly, and as we sort of alluded to earlier, we've now spent, I think, sort of 6 months in driving a huge segmentation across all those particular segments, and we've defined a number of segments which are age-based, which are job-based, which are religion-based as well, obviously, and which are also around salary and real disposable income, but also about expectations of those individuals.
Okay, tell me some of those.
Yeah, so we have some of the ages, let's say 18 to 34, which are real drivers, and these individuals are either starting off in their career or are becoming now to the point of financial independence, right? Some of those are in need, will push much more towards a savings type of program.
But what's their awareness like when it comes to all things financial, really? I mean, are they sort of, or are they kind of like, well, it's my parents', job?
No, I think the studies that we've actually done really, and if you look at the OJK index as well, what's surprising, financial marks are actually higher effectively than, so financial literacy is almost double insurance literacy. And for us, as I said, that is an opportunity. And that opportunity, in fact, has to be driven by our need to understand, again, those particular segments and work through those segments as well. When we talk about insurance, there's no way you can sell insurance without creating the awareness of insurance. I mean, you look in, the government is supporting, the OJK is supporting in creating financial literacy. We're driving many, many, many programs in terms of financial insurance literacy. You may be aware of our Cha-Ching program, which it really drives financial literacy right throughout all the borders and remote areas.
And how do you do that?
We do it in many ways. We do it face to face.
So you're literally knocking on doors?
Yeah, we're there, and we have sort of these open spaces, and we invite people in, and we discuss about finance and insurance. We do hybrid. It can be some local and some online. We also do digital related from our digital platforms. And in fact, I was quite amazed that we've almost reached, or we've reached over 230,000 people already through that digital medium. I mean, Cha-Ching is huge. Now, in line with, which is quite important, going back to the demographic bonus, if we're going to achieve that in 2045, we have to start educating now. And we have to start educating the young now in preparation of what's coming. And that's a big aspect of what the team is actually doing. We have a very large strategy and a very big strategy.
And you have a good team.
Oh, I think it's the best team I've ever had, actually.
And how many of altogether?
Well, the whole team as well, maybe 70, 80, but the core team is 15 or 20 people, which really drive the success. And again, it's driven by passion, Desi, and that's the most important thing. You know, you can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't have the willingness, it's not going to work. And here they have the willingness.
So in all your efforts, what sort of feedback? I mean, what kind of things that they're asking you, and is there a sense that they're understanding it? I mean, there has to be a match between their understanding and also.
I think the match is different in different segments and different areas. I think what you have to understand is financial literacy and financial understanding is easier in the sense that, you know, I've got a tangible bank card. You know, I can work off a budget. I can work that out for myself. Insurance is an intangible. No. Insurance has that
because
trust.
You may not even see what it is that you're paying for. Right?
You'll actually get a policy, but now a policy is digital anyway, right? So it's not even tangible in most cases. So I think there is wariness about insurance. And I think when you talk about insurance, it's the wariness of financial planning for the long term. Right? So you will see that many of us will sell short-term plans for 4 or 5 years, but those plans that go for longer are much more, which is the difference between countries like Singapore and South Korea and the rest, because their understanding just effectively started much earlier. So I think
because now, like you said, they're thinking of their legacy. Now they're thinking of, you know, what it is that they need to leave their children. But now, you know, especially with the young people. Yeah. What is it that they, you know?
From a younger perspective, and I think the studies that we've carried out, and I know that we carried out a specific study around the millennials, and I think the Gen Z as well, and I think they are more aware of the need for insurance. And their need of insurance, they're aware of the need for protection in the early, and they're aware of the need that they will need to save. Now, whether it's saving for their education, or whether it's saving for their wedding, or whether it's saving for their pension, that's a need. But there's far more understanding also in terms of the retirement ages, you know. The other key aspect is on the retirement side, I think there's 19-point-something million retirees. It's going to get to almost 40 million in 25, 30 years. Out of those retirees, 25% are unwell. But who looks after them?
Yeah, exactly.
The children, on the whole, will look after them. So there's more awareness about saying, well, let's
not put the burden on the children. Yeah?
Exactly.
Especially when, you know, it's hard enough for the children to earn.
And also, Desi, the children are taking out policies in the event of that happening. So it's about understanding the cycle of life and expectations.
Okay, I like that. Understanding the cycle of life.
Yeah.
You know, we don't live forever.
No.
We don't know when we're going to get sick, and we don't know and when
Yeah.
that happens, you do want to have like a cushion to fall on, right?
And that's incredibly important. But I think here in Indonesia, the most comfortable cushion, the biggest thing that we need to look at is health.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to say that Indonesians are among one of the unhealthiest people on the planet.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take another little break, but
Okay.
we will pursue in this direction, because
Okay.
I do think it's important, especially since we do have a target to have this golden Indonesia.
Yes.
So we have to ensure that we have healthy people.
For sure, for sure.
Tetaplah bersama Insight with Desi Anwar, kami akan segera kembali. Anda masih bersama Insight with Desi Anwar. Ada Tony Benitez, CEO Prudential Indonesia, bersama saya membicarakan mengenai peran industri asuransi khususnya dalam meningkatkan literasi keuangan di Indonesia. Asuransi itu sebenarnya adalah sedia payung sebelum hujan. There's a saying in Indonesian that you have to be prepared with the umbrella before it rains.
Oh, good.
Because
Okay.
once it rains, you're going to get drenched, and then you're going to get
It's very English,
sick, yeah.
actually. Do you know the English always go out with an umbrella,
absolutely.
rain or shine?
Come rain and shine, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, it can be sunny in the
Yeah.
morning, and then like 2 hours later, it's
Absolutely.
raining. Well, it's the same thing with if we're talking about the
Yeah.
cycle of life. You know,
Yes.
you're sort of happy, and you think
Yes.
you're going to live forever, and then the next day you're going to have an accident, or
Absolutely.
you're going to get sick, or whatever.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me then some of the, from your sort of talking to people and finding their needs, what is it that you find, and in the various segments, how do you match that
Yeah.
with the products or the benefits or the
Yeah.
purpose, so to speak?
Yeah. I think that, certainly, I know we just finished off on sort of the health piece. What is really important to understand that within insurance, you've got a life policy that can end, that you may not see, or so hopefully something doesn't happen, you don't have to utilize it for years. You have the opportunity to also save for different events.
Like a nest egg at the end.
Yeah.
You can.
But I think more, and then you've got the opportunity where, and this is a very real issue, not just here, but around the world, is health insurance. And this is the biggest issue on people's minds. The ability to have affordable health insurance. And why is because for the last couple of years, all insurance companies have had to increase premium.
Yeah, that's why we had COVID, remember that?
Yeah.
That was...
So what's happened is post-COVID, medical inflation has increased this year 13%. The cost of claim has increased by over 30%. So people are seeing very substantial increases in their premiums.
Is that stopping people from buying health insurance?
It's stopping people from buying insurance in total as well. So we're working very closely, obviously, with the regulators, with the hospitals, with all our other stakeholders and partners, to really try and manage the cost. And that's absolutely essential, because that's where your money goes. You know, and on average, someone is around 30% out of pocket when they actually go, whether they're hospitalized or post-recuperation. So what is really, really, really important for us is to ensure that we have, and this is listening to them, products that are affordable. And the team is developing a product that we call Affordable Health for the future. And again, different segments. You've got the high net worth. The price point is not important to them. The service is important to them. And then you go look more into the sort of the mass market and different, and then the price becomes much more sensitive. Then you really do have the vulnerable, right? Where, of course, the PPJS are there, and they do a phenomenal job in covering 95% of the population. But there's opportunity for insurers and for us to be able to support, and we have to listen, and that's where the different products, because the product has to be based on the expectations of the individual, but also on the price. What can they afford? And that is where we're going to be working
But
very
then
strongly with.
is a business picking up in that aspect now? Are there people buying more health insurance these days, or is
Yeah.
it still sort of kind of...
We launched what I thought was a very innovative product called Pruwell. And in the past, when you take a health policy, every year the increase is there because of medical inflation, but the increase is there because of the increase in claims. Now, everyone in that portfolio would get the same increase. So if you were ill and used it a lot, it's the same increase as someone who was healthy. And that's a little bit of an imbalance. We developed a product that actually says, look, it's a claims-based product, that if you don't get a claim, then
you should also get some kind of
discount. Exactly.
Incentive.
Absolutely.
So you're not subsidizing other.
Exactly. And that's a product that we've just launched, and it's doing extremely, extremely well.
What's the most popular product at the moment? Is that becoming one of the?
That is becoming one of them. We have a sort of a critical illness product, which is actually very good. So in the event of something occurring, you get a lump sum. And obviously we have a sort of a short-term savings program or saving plan as well, which is actually quite. But it's exactly what you said, Desi. We've got to understand the needs of each particular segment, and because it's for every life.
Yeah.
It's for everyone. Our markets is for everyone. So we need to be able to, even for me, cover micro-insurance. And that's something we'll look
But how
at.
are you, I mean, when we're talking about financial literacy, I mean, there's like lots of forms to fill in, and then, like your dad had somebody sort of help, fill in so that you can understand what it is that you're buying, and normally, all the small prints and so on. So, how are you doing that? Because that could also be a barrier, right?
Yeah,
especially for people who kind of can't be bothered to read the small prints. And the other thing is, the way we deal with banks, and it used to be that we queue up to get the banks to get our money. Now everything is using gadgets. How does that affect your sort of
well, it does, because
business,
I think
innovations, digital technology?
So effectively a lot is done sort of digitally now, so you can almost, and our underwriting will be front-ended, which means at the point of sale you can effectively issue.
So is it easier now to buy insurance and put it there?
I think it's easier, but I think a point that you make is really important, is the complexity sometimes of the proposal forms, the complexity of the request of information, and that's something that we're constantly looking at. I had conversations today about that, actually. So, and I think we need to look at how do we simplify far more
to make it,
without
make it
losing,
easier,
make it without losing, because on the other side we have to manage the risk, right?
Yeah, of course, but then you also need to make them understand that,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly what this is all about that you're buying.
And of course, I mean, we have 100,000 agency partners around.
100,000,
100,000. And that gives us reach and spread, and the education programs that they undertake are also about how to effectively communicate, how to effectively engage. And that is a great support. So the man from the Pru exists, right? Here.
And the
right? And the lady from the Pru.
at least his spirit, his sense of purpose, is still there.
It's still there.
Indonesia is, as a market, I mean, like you said, we still, the opportunity is there,
huge,
obviously,
yes.
and we're, in terms of our financial sort of penetration, insurance is still quite shallow. But competition is there. Like, is it getting crowded? I mean, and how do you manage that? And how do you try to stay on top of the competition, particularly with the variety of your products, or the types of service, or the whatnot?
I think competition is there. I think the difference in competitors is not just the product, it's the entire value proposition. That's where our difference is.
And the brand,
and
obviously.
The brand is very strong, but the brand it will always be as good as the proposition that you provide. And the proposition for us is product, understanding our customers, working with those customers, developing the right product at the right price point with the right service. And that's continuous. But that, as we said, right, is all about the segmentation that's actually needed and required. And that for me is something that is a must do. And that's where our focus is. At the right stage, the people that we have, you have to be passionate about this business because we're one of the luckiest people in the world. We can change lives. We can redistribute wealth. And it's the same as I say to our agency partners, as I say to my staff, look at our opportunity, what we can do. We can help all those wonderful communities to grow. That's something that we have, and that's our legacy. Okay. And I think if we keep to that, and I'm sure we will here, and it will be beyond my time here, it's amazing. It'll be wonderful.
Okay, let's take another little break. We still do have one more segment, so let the conversation continue.
Yes.
Tetaplah bersama kami, jangan kemana-mana dulu. Insight with Desi Anwar akan segera kembali. Anda masih bersama Insight with Desi Anwar. Di studio saya bersama Tony Benitez, CEO Prudential Indonesia. Now, Tony, you know Indonesia quite well.
Yes.
Obviously, and that's also one of your dreams, working in Indonesia, and that dream has now come true. And let's talk about, now that you are here on the helm of Prudential Indonesia, how do you see Indonesia itself sort of evolving, and how do you make sure that your company, Prudential Indonesia, sort of keeps up with the evolution, as well as trying to fulfill not just, you know, the needs of the company and the needs for you to sort of get your products and your services, but also we have things like issues on the environmental, you know, like climate change, and we also have like the importance of having a social impact. I mean, you mentioned that you are distributing wealth. That should be the purpose of the insurance company. It's not just selling product, but it's also making, you know, distributing wealth and also creating wealth.
Creating wealth,
okay?
absolutely.
And just the whole, what we call, you know, the ESG part of it.
Yeah, I think we have to align very much with Indonesia Emas 2045. I think that for me is a priority.
That's like the North Star.
That's really a North Star for us, and it should be, because that's where the productive period and the productive time is there. You know, the work that we do is for the benefit of society. It has to be, it cannot be anything else. So look, we're aware that we have to build financial literacy. We need to have individuals and people who have insurance. Mental wellness is also an important part of this. The more secure you feel, the more level one tends to be as well. But I think what we need to build in the next sort of number of years is financial resilience. And we have to have these people that have that financial resilience to grow and make the most of that period. That for me is it. That for me, and I think that will help. And as we tie ourselves in with that, by then understanding our segments and the products, and working through those products and segments and creating the financial resilience in each of the segments, I think we will be ahead of the curve.
Tell me more about the financial resilience, not just, you know, on an individual basis, but how it should affect like the Indonesian society, especially, you know, climate change, creating extreme weathers, and then all sorts of you know, challenges.
Financial, I mean, there are two aspects to that, and I think we need to be a part of that, and that is the whole concept of, or the whole approach of, or the agenda, the ESG agenda, that we have to be central to that. But in terms of financial resilience, it's the ability for people to feel. It's what I normally say is save well, spend wisely. And that concept of being able to understand where how you're progressing in society, how you're growing, and how your wealth is also progressing and growing in those events. And the resilience is about, in the event of something happening, you're protected. That's the financial resilience that is required.
And there is flexibility, obviously, as you get older. For every, you know, 10 years or decade that you spend, your needs change, right?
Absolutely.
When you start having families, for example, or then when you sort of reaching the age when, you have aging parents and children,
and
that
how you have
need
to look
go
after
college.
them. Yeah, and our agency partners are well versed in sitting down and looking at needs analysis and saying, look, let's look at your future. Let's look what's likely to happen. And in these situations, this is the probability of something occurring. And you know what? That's where all these undulations, we want to even out. So you have the resilience to manage and maintain the standard of living that you're currently living, or you enhance that, right?
I'm interested in what you said about you are in the business of creating wealth and distributing wealth, and we have a new government coming, and they're mentioning a growth of 8%, for example. Do you have any sort of specific target, or that you want to also achieve in order to help boost up our development, our growth to 8%, which is quite ambitious. We're now sort of currently in the 5%.
5%
and that
way.
also is reflected in how we deal with financial issues.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's almost like in a sense I know what you're saying, it's almost like the multiplier effect. From our perspective, if we look at it economically, financial resilience allows people to have more real disposable income, and that real disposable income will be placed back into the economy, and that will generate more growth for it, and that's important. And the ability for people to spend. And that's what insurance allows you with proper planning, that ability. So that's sort of a direct correlation to it. We certainly have internal targets of number of customers we want to reach, the awareness that we want to reach, the financial resilience target, literacy target, insurance literacy targets that we want to reach.
And this is the market.
And this is more for, and all the market segmentation, how we build and how we grow that over.
We've sort of looked at it in a helicopter perspective.
Yeah.
Now, can you start off our conversation with a very unique story, very individual?
Yeah.
Is there really a story that you share that makes you feel like, yes, I am, this is a business that I'm really passionate about. It has a purpose, and this is an example of why it makes me happy and positive to be in this business. Is there a story with insurance?
Yeah,
that
I mean, I think
with us?
there are many stories, and I tell you why. Because as an insurer, what do? We pay claims. In good times and bad times, we pay claims. And I think the biggest joy is being able to hand out a pay claim to individuals that can now, even though in the saddest of situations, of course, have an opportunity to breathe and to grow. And, in some cases, the wives are left alone, they have their children, and now they have a lump sum to support their children through education and the rest. And it's the same story as I had when it happened to me.
Yeah.
Insurance never changes. It's ultimately, we underwrite and we pay claim, and we have to be very proud to pay claim. And if we actually want to stay number one, our claims processes and procedures need to be better than anyone else's.
And is it? And are you making it easier too?
Yeah.
And less kind of stressful for all involved? Because normally when you do claims, you're sort of emotionally overwhelmed. You're not in a good position.
Yes,
and,
yes. I mean, I think for life-related claims, I think we have a pretty seamless process, and I think it works well. For health-related claims, it's more onerous because of the interdependencies we have with hospitals and doctors and everything else. But we have a major claims transformation project that has commenced, will end in Q1 next year, in a way that we believe will be better than anything else there in the market in terms of serviceability and also ease of receiving a claim, which is important, and the manner by which we constantly communicate in terms of where that claim is. So that will be.
What would you like to see better in Indonesia in terms of policies, regulations, as well as a climate in order to basically do your business and grow your business?
I think we're fairly fortunate, if I might say, Desi, because I think we work with the government bodies and we work with the regulators very well. We coordinate and engage. We're very much part of a number of different forums, and they listen to us, and we, of course, listen to them. So I have to say, it's quite seamless.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's quite
Okay.
seamless
I'm happy to hear
for
that.
us. There are always little bits here and there and things that can improve, but overall, we're working towards the same goal, and that's the most important thing, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're happy, right, in
Yes.
Indonesia.
I'm
What's your? I
absolutely
mean, you
delighted.
coming the big six coming up. What's your own personal target? And what sort of legacy would you like to sort of leave when you?
Yeah.
when you
I think
eventually
my target,
retire?
I am so lucky, Desi. As I said, I always had two goals, to work for Prudential and to work in Indonesia, and it's fulfilled. So I wake up every morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like a jumping jack, so I'm incredibly happy, right? So in terms of to stay and work here as long as I actually can, to make a difference
Yeah.
in terms of leadership and supporting our employees grow and our employees develop, to help provide, we say our customer is our compass, to deliver and grow and put in a service that's second to none, and to really support our distributors, our agency partners as well, in ensuring that they have the right products and services to deliver together. And I think, ultimately, I'd be happy, really.
Well, what
And
about
I am-
your own personal goals? What would you like to do? Like a mountain to scale,
Oh man, that's a
do
really
open water
busy.
swimming across?
Yeah, I'd probably drown.
channel.
Probably fall off the motorbike. No. That's an
Well,
insurance
but
person.
you've got insurance.
That's an insurance person talking, right? Risk management. No, do you know? For me, is probably.
Or retire in Bali? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to travel much more once this period comes. I don't think I can retire.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep sort of my toe in the water in some, maybe consult or do something. I did teach before, so maybe going back into teaching is something I'd like to do.
All right.
So that's
So
it.
what traveling is,
And
like
traveling.
Indonesia, we
Huge,
have 17,000 islands. You can do one island at a time. That'll keep you busy.
That
for
will
the
keep you
rest of your life.
exactly.
Tony, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been enlightening, and I think very insightful conversation indeed. And best of luck to you. And I hope you
Thank you.
stay in Indonesia for a very long time.
I hope to, Desi. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Ya, demikian Insight with Desi Anwar kali ini. Jangan lupa Anda juga dapat menyaksikan tayangan ini di cnnindonesia.com dan di YouTube CNN Indonesia Insight with Desi Anwar. Sampai jumpa. Stay safe. Bye-bye.